Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Yeah.
Just changed my name. Perfect. How's everything?
Hanging in. It's been kind of a crazy, feel like every time I turn around, like every time I think things can't go crazier, they get crazier.
Yeah, it's usually how it is. Exactly.
Yes, I'm hopeful and optimistic things will start to subside with all this stuff. And just things that are kind of in progress. But I
Good.
appreciate your time today. I wasn't expecting people to book it like right away. So I want to apologize in advance if you hear any noise in the background. We have some people that are here working at our house today, so um, hopefully they're not going to be too loud. But you're away for the weekend a couple weeks ago, and we came back and there was like the sewer had backed up a little bit in our workshop, like nothing crazy, but like a little bit. And then they came and they're like, "Oh, there's like this big blockage, and we don't know if it's like rocks or a pipe collapse." And we're like, "Ah." So the
Mhm.
way it works is like if the pipe is up to a certain point close to the house, like it's like their responsibility to a point and then our responsibility on the inside. So thankfully it's on the outside.
Thankful.
I guess just to clear the last little bit of this blockage, which they don't yet know what it is.
Yeah.
Like the one guy came at midnight, I think the night after the first appointment, and he was like spray painting our whole lawn and our driveway, and we're like, oh my God.
Yeah, what's going on?
Like
Yeah.
rip our whole like property apart. So
Mm.
yeah, so we'll see. It might be some loud grinding, so we can just take a pause if it gets loud at any point.
No problem. I actually went through that exact similar situation in one of my rental properties. There was an obstruction in the municipality drain that
Yeah.
caused a huge sewage backup into our apartment. One of our
Oh,
apartments in like the basement apartment of one of our fourplexes.
yeah.
It was, thank God it was the municipality's, obstruction that caused it, and it fell under our insurance and everything. But yeah, I went
Yeah,
through that.
it's scary. And the ironic thing is I never really thought about it. And when we were renewing our house insurance, I think everyone's house insurance like went up a lot. So I was in touch with the account manager, be like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And it turns out it's still cheaper than like a lot of the alternatives, but she was trying to sell us on the insurance to cover this because she was talking about that. And I was like, go figure, like 4 months later. So at least again, it's on that side of things. But I think just the way that everything has gone in the last little while, like with real estate and on the investing side, like just with everything kind of blowing up, I there's a bunch of things. Like I don't know how you feel being a realtor in Montreal, but I just feel like everyone's just on hold. Like I even have a few houses where I have like lock boxes on the property that have been on for 3 months and they haven't signed the listing paperwork. And I'm like, what are we doing? Like it's
Yeah.
just crazy. And I just found that I don't know, it just hasn't been dependable in the last little while, right? So I was trying to think of like, what do I like? What do I think I'd be good at? Like, what can I add value to people? And this is something that I thought is like a lot of people focus on Instagram, which I think does really, really well in certain capacities. And I think real estate can be one of those. Like, but it's largely on the B2C side, where obviously with LinkedIn, it's more on the B2B side. I think
Yeah.
that's where a lot of money is there. And I think there's a lot of untapped potential just in terms of building those connections. And I've just been following some of the people that, one of the guys, I don't know if I'm going to say his name right, but Mark Kuhn, he has like a $25 million construction company, does a lot of multifamily and stuff like that. So I think people are starting to really see where there's a lot of opportunity and potential and things like that. So depending on what your focus is, I thought this could be something that, depending on what kind of clients you're aiming to get and stuff like that, it could be an opportunity. But I think a lot of business owners are just too busy. They don't know how to post. They don't know how to
Yeah.
bring that story out and stuff like that. So I think that's where the two-way dialogue will help. And ideally, what I would do is I have a series of questions. It's different than a podcast because I'm not going to be part of the final product. So when I'm asking a question, like you wouldn't just answer it because it may not make sense without the context. So if
Yeah.
I say like, what inspired you to start your business? I think it's good to I'd be like, I was inspired to start my business because. So you kind of add the question at the beginning, or
Yeah.
also just think about like what kind of hook would really bring people in. So you could say like, for my post this morning, for example, it could say like success is not a solo journey, but you could say it isn't supposed to be a solo journey. Success is this, but it kind of creates that curiosity with how you kind of open with that sentence. So for when we're going through stuff, like depending on how you respond, we can do it a few different ways and just see like what
Yeah.
one we're happiest with.
Yeah.
Because obviously I want it to be something that makes sense for you and you're happy with. So don't hesitate to be like, yeah, this didn't sound totally right. Like we can do it a few different times. And I'm
Okay.
not on like a super tight clock today or anything like that. So I just want to make sure it's something that you're happy with and you can repurpose as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I got the full gist of it for sure, and
Okay.
essentially just like open my answer with the question that I'm being asked, to
Exactly.
add more
Yeah. So
context.
it has some context. And again, it doesn't have to necessarily completely, as long as it kind of still alludes into it before you give like the full answer. And ideally, like the answers will be all within 60 to 90 seconds. So they're intended to be more like sound bites so that people can get to know you, know your stories, how you communicate, those leadership lessons and stuff like that. So it just has that element of like curiosity and teaching and things like that.
Okay,
Cool.
perfect.
Do you have any questions for me before we get started, or is there anything that you'd want to focus on? I just kind of drafted like really basic questions for like these trial recordings. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, no, if there's anything that you feel I could do better, let me know. Don't, but I think I got the gist of it. I
okay.
should be a good trial run.
Yeah, yeah, it's something that I think it's a little bit different, like same, but different from the podcast.
Yeah,
So, okay. So I have it already set to record. I changed my settings to auto record because I had an issue once where the internet went down and then we
nice.
forgot to hit record again and we like lost like a really
Everything.
great interview. So now it's automatically set up that way. All right, so to get started, obviously you've been in real estate now for a little while and you just recently launched ProVenture as well. So what
Yes.
inspired you to start these businesses?
Well, what really inspired me to start my own business is because I always thought about leading a life by design and not default, and I found real estate was the way that I was going to be able to build that life by design for myself and my family and my future. And when I got into real estate, I always knew that I had a larger vision than what was in front of me, but I understood that small actionable steps led to my long-term goals. So I started off as a real estate broker before eventually opening a property management business because I found a need to service my real estate brokerage clients. And most recently, we created ProVenture, which what really fueled that vision is we wanted to centralize all our expertise. My partner and I wanted to centralize our expertise and build a strong educational system with a proper curriculum that we know works because we have executed in our own personal investment journey and have helped hundreds of people execute in their real estate related projects.
So I think one thing that we could do is like, I liked what you said when you said, I believe in leading a life by design, not by default. So you could
Mhm.
open with something like that. You could say, I don't believe in living a life by default. I want to lead my life by design. So you could kind of
Okay.
open with something like that. And I think it might be a little bit more intriguing to people. So to open with that and then say, and then I was inspired to start my business because I want to help other people
Mhm.
do the same. So they're not just like kind of sinking into the same things they're comfortable with or kind of like segue into the story that way.
Okay.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, sure. So you want me to repeat?
Yeah. Yeah, but
Okay.
just open it a little bit different. However you want to say it, like I want to live my life by I want to lead my life by design, not by default.
Okay.
And then you
Uh,
could say it. And because of this belief, I was inspired to start my business and
Okay.
blah, 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 blah.
Perfect. Okay. Ready?
Yeah, yeah, whenever you're
Yeah.
ready.
So I always wanted to lead my life by design and not by default. And because of this belief, I was inspired to start my business. And I found that real estate was the road that I wanted to take and create a business rooted in real estate. So,
Yeah, you
go
can
on.
keep, yeah, you can keep on going. I can
Okay.
edit like more of the back end of that other answer into it, but you can add
Okay.
a
So,
little bit more to it, or like even just have like think about what that lesson is. Like that's a great takeaway to open with, but maybe include one key example about how real estate allowed you to kind of shape that life that you wanted to live.
okay. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, and then like I said, if there's something from the first part, I can always like edit it together. So
All right. Yeah. No problem. All right. Okay. So I've always dreamed about leading my life by design and not by default. And because of this belief, it allowed me to start my business, which was rooted in real estate. Because I believe that for me, real estate was the way that I wanted to take because it was a business that allowed me to live to my true professional potential and didn't have a ceiling or a cap. So the possibilities were endless. And at the beginning, I started off my career as a real estate broker before opening a property management business to help service more needs of my clients. And most recently, we launched ProVenture, which was a project rooted in helping people build their futures through real estate investment, just like we did. And we created a centralized educational system with tried and tested strategies that we have used and have helped hundreds of people use.
Great. Yeah, I think you'll be happy with that just because again, you want to grab people's attention if you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in terms of the second question, can you describe the actual moment when you decided you wanted to be an entrepreneur? So obviously you developed this belief, but was there like an aha moment where a light bulb went off and you're like, yep, like this is the way I'm gonna go. So you could
So
say
the
something like the light bulb moment for me was,
yeah.
or like however you want to open it. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, 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 no. I'm just you're right though. It is very different from a podcast. So it's like it is yeah, no, so I'm really thinking now about the
Yeah, so
answers.
don't overthink it. Like, I don't want you to
Yeah.
be nervous or anything. Like, just like I said, I think you want to try to capture attention and tell your story in a way that's really interesting and intriguing for people. So, that's where it's again, I have to be careful because I don't want to talk when you're talking because I'm not going to be part of again that finished product.
Okay. Oh, okay. So perfect. So the moment that I really knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur was from a very young age. I would say basically during high school, where I decided that I didn't want to lead a traditional life and I wanted to create my own life. And I had this moment of clarity or the light bulb moment where I realized that if I would follow a traditional path, it would just lead me to live a life by default. And that's when I decided to explore my entrepreneurial side. And from a very young age, I did various little businesses. Like my first business was a cleaning company. And then I did independent events where we would service and cater events independently. So I always had that entrepreneurial mindset from a very young age. And I knew that this was ultimately the way I was going to lead my life.
I guess to add on to that, could you say something like, I think it could be interesting to add to it to say, like if you have that feeling inside of you, like almost to encourage people to chase that dream. Like sometimes people have that, it almost feels like a compulsion or something, or like something pulling them in that direction, right? So you could say like if you have this feeling in you, like I would encourage you to explore it and see if entrepreneurship or could be a fit for you. Or like you could kind of edit with that just so it's like inspiring for people.
Yeah. You want me to say that independently or add it on
You
to?
can do it either way. Like I can definitely use the first part and then edit it that way, or
Okay.
we can go from the top either way.
Okay. I'll add the second part in then.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So one thing that I really, understood and would offer as advice to anybody who's an aspiring entrepreneur is if you have that feeling inside of you, go for it. And if you go for it, go all in. The only way you're actually going to make your vision become a reality is if you take action and you pursue it enthusiastically with passion.
Yeah, I love that. I think that'll be like a good way to cap that. Um, so in terms of a turning point, obviously there was times that you felt like you were, you're dabbling in different things, right? So you were just talking about the cleaning and the events, then ultimately real estate. So what would you say would that be that turning point for you? Like, you're probably maybe not as successful as you would want to be in some of those other paths. So what was that turning point where you're like, it's gelling now, like everything's coming together?
A large turning point for me in my professional career is when I realized that I possessed a lot of knowledge and expertise that I was able to offer to people, whether it was clients or partnerships, or, for example, people that I have mentored in the past, like colleagues. I knew that I had a lot of expertise to offer and wisdom to share with them to help them follow a proper path and avoid some of the mistakes that I have made myself as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think that it's something where, you don't know what you don't know, right? And sometimes you take for granted the things that you know inherently or you've learned along the way that you think, oh, well, of course everybody knows this. And then you probably realize you're having a lot of the same conversations and stuff like that with people. So it's like, then you realize like maybe this is my gift or like this is going to be my superpower to help people, right? So in terms of things like scaling your business, obviously, when you're a realtor, it can be very challenging. Like you can get pulled in a lot of directions and stuff like that. So that's when people start to scale by building their team or they kind of develop in other ways, like you've done with ProVenture. How have you approached just kind of the overall consideration with scaling?
So my approach towards scaling was a very specific one. I've always been one who was very independent, and I've always liked to take on, the responsibility and the roles. But as an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, as we call it, sometimes you have this moment of realization where you realize if you want to scale it to the next level, you can't do it alone. And I learned from that point on, I learned that I couldn't do everything on my own, and that was okay. And I realized that the key to scaling was not only including the right people into your team, but making sure that these people have different strengths than your weaknesses. It's okay to have weaknesses in business, but it's not okay to not realize them or to avoid them because that's only just going to prolong the suffering and prevent you from scaling. So by realizing you have weaknesses and adding the right members to your team really allows you to take your business to the next level.
We can definitely edit. I think there's one point in the middle where it may make more sense to open with that line, like maybe opening up with something like when you're an entrepreneur, it's important to realize that you
Okay.
can't do it all alone. And then you can
Okay.
say, for like my example is because like not the world can fall down, but like the wheels can start coming off the car, so to speak, if you're trying to do too much. But I can edit that based on what you've said, or if you want, we can go from the top and then you can add your example in.
No, I'll redo it. I'll redo it. So, okay, so how do you want me to open again? When you're an entrepreneur,
You could say, I've come to realize that you can't do it all alone. Or like an important it's important for entrepreneurs to know that they can't do it all alone and they shouldn't do it all alone. Or you could say it like something like that. Just something that
okay,
kind of grabs them a little bit more, and then you can kind of lead into what you're going to talk about.
okay, perfect. So, as an entrepreneur, it's important to understand that you can't do it all alone. And that was a turning point for me when it came to my own business and wanting to scale. I was always one who took on many roles and responsibilities, but I realized at one point that it was holding me back from scaling my business to the level that I wanted to be. At that point, that's when I understood that I needed to add people and to put a team in place in order to help me take myself to the next level. But it's not only about adding people to the team, it's about adding the right people, adding people whose strengths complement your weaknesses. It's okay to have weaknesses in business, but you need to realize them, acknowledge them, and add those members that can complement those weaknesses. Otherwise, if you stay stuck in the mindset of wanting to do everything alone, you prevent yourself from taking your business to the next level where you truly like to be.
Yeah, I always like that when they're like, you shouldn't be the smartest person in the room. Like, I think the most successful businesses are like that. So now when we're talking about things like challenges, can you describe a time when you faced a really big challenge and how you worked on overcoming it? So again, I'm not sure what you want to talk about, but just we'll kind of go through it the first time and then see how maybe it makes sense to open with it.
This is a good question, actually. A very good question because there's
You could
plenty
say
of
like we're
challenges.
all say you're going to face challenges and it's how you deal with those challenges that matter the most and then you
Okay.
could maybe lead into it. Or
Okay.
if there's another way you want to say it.
Yeah, no, I'll say that. Yeah. In life or business, you're always going to face challenges, but it's important how you deal with these challenges. And in my business, there's a lot of problems that I need to provide solutions for. And sometimes those solutions are a little bit clearer than others. And sometimes it's a little bit more complex to find these solutions. But if there's one thing I understood, it's not about resources, it's about being resourceful. And the minute that I understood that, how to be resourceful, I was able to provide adequate and efficient solutions to any challenge that I came across in my business.
I think that was good. Were you happy with that one?
Was happy with that one. I felt I stuttered a little bit on
I
it,
can
but
edit probably the first part of it.
okay.
So I wouldn't worry about like how it opened. So I can definitely tighten that up.
Yeah, sure. I felt it was good.
Yeah, I think that yeah, it's always good like when you're dealing with these crazy things, like there's the people that you're going to face a challenge, you're going to come to the other side, but it's like the people that are like freaking out the whole way or they just kind of remain calm. Like I was on a call with some of the Windrose lenders and someone emailed me after. She's like, I know we're just facing like this crazy thing, but like with you leading the call, that sense of calm just came over me. And it's trying to like just keep everybody like it's like the building's burning down, but it's not going to help if we're all running around shrieking. Like, let's just get down the stairs and remain calm and we'll get out, you know? And it's like, it was just kind of nice that I got that email, but I think that's such an important thing when you're in business, right?
Oh yeah.
So I guess to add on to that question, can you talk about a time that you made a really big mistake? And you can really, I think, evoke some curiosity here, be like, I made a huge mistake in my business and just kind of open with that because people are going to be like, what's the mistake? They're going to want to know, right?
I think many times I made a mistake for sure, but I made a really huge mistake in my business early on. And unfortunately, I didn't understand it or realize it until it got to a point where I understood that because of this mistake, I wasn't able to take myself to the next level. And I understood that when it came to my business, the mistake that I made was I didn't put pen to paper and map out my plan from the get-go. And unfortunately, this is crucial when we want to succeed in business. You absolutely have to have a business plan. And this business plan should include things like systems and structures that you absolutely need to follow in business in order to make it function efficiently and proficiently.
I have a mentor that used to say, you don't know where you're going, you might end up someplace else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good metaphor for having a business plan. What would you say is a common misconception about your industry, and have you tried to maybe combat that stereotype?
Common misconception about being a real estate expert is that we get paid and we don't do anything and we don't do much work. When in reality, what people tend to see is what we put on social media, but what they don't see is all the behind the scenes work that we go through as real estate professionals. And that's early mornings, late nights, weekends. Sometimes we're sacrificing dinners with our family. Sometimes we're sacrificing events, personal events for our business. So a huge misconception I would say that I often debunk with people, even on an everyday basis, is that we actually work a lot harder than you perceive us to work. People think that it's all glamour. People think that it's all sunny days in business, but they don't see a lot of the cloudy days and the hard work and the behind the scenes struggles that not only myself, but each entrepreneur puts into their business.
I think I think that was good. I think we could maybe add some context or just like just to open it, you could say it's a lot harder than most people think. In
Okay.
my business, people see um, the flashy open houses or like the social media videos with the realtor like rolling up on in their fancy car. And what they don't see is the early mornings, the late nights, stepping away from personal commitments to make sure that you're delivering what you need to for your clients. But I think again, just making it creating that curiosity at the beginning will help
Okay.
lead people into that topic.
Can you just repeat that open again for me?
Yeah,
Sorry.
so you could say it's a lot harder than most people think. In real estate, people often see this, this, this. What they don't see is this and this. but you do kind of what you have to do to, you know, make sure that things work for your client or like however you want to add to that lesson.
Okay, perfect. Business is a lot harder than people think, especially when it comes to real estate. What most people see is all the social media stuff that we put online about the projects, the sales, or the contracts that we've just signed. But what they don't actually know is that we put in a lot of late nights, early mornings, sacrifice events and dinners with loved ones in order to keep working on our business. And they don't necessarily see the amount of stress that goes into this type of business.
Yeah, that's good. I can definitely combine a little bit more to that. Um, Now, in terms of just motivation and inspiration, what would you say excites you most about getting out of bed? Like, obviously, some days, especially with the market that we've had, I'm sure some realtors are like, going into another day. But what
Yeah.
would you say excites you the very most about what you're doing and working in this industry?
One thing that excites me to get up every morning and motivates me to chase that dream and those goals is that I know that every day is going to be different. There's not one day that is repetitive or redundant. And every day I'm going to have a different problem to provide a different solution to and a different outcome to that day. And just by knowing that tomorrow will be different from the previous one, it motivates me enough to go to bed and wake up tomorrow to chase the next day.
I think that was really good. I think one other way we could also twist it is like, and tell me what you think. It could be like if you've been having a hard time being excited to get out of bed and start your day, this is
Mhm.
what I found helpful for me. Or like it could be in a way also like I don't know if we add to that, but maybe you can add to that lesson. Like if you've been dragging your feet getting out of bed every morning, like maybe how to reframe your perspective on
Okay. Yeah, I can do that. Actually, I could do that from personal experience because I've actually been there. Yeah. If you're having a hard time getting out of bed every morning, one thing I could definitely suggest that I have done myself that worked for me was create a solid morning routine. And I like to call it the winter mornings, where we wake up and we put our directly in our mind that we want to win over the day. And by creating a solid morning routine, it does two things. It starts your day with peace and it keeps you calm going into your day, especially if you're in a stressful business. So my morning routine could be, for example, in the first hour of my morning, not touching any electronics, no social media, no emails. Start my day with a breath work, meditation, coffee, of course, and then read a book for 30 minutes. And what that does to me is it calms my mind. So I'm entering my workday with a calm mind and focus.
there's I don't know if you've seen some of my posts about the Wealth Club, but one of the couple of the guys actually are like breathwork specialists. So
Mhm.
I never really done anything quite like that before. But the one guy, his name's Gio Bartomello. He's apparently like the highest cannoli salesperson in all of the country at one point. Now he's like a breathwork guru. He's got a company called Elemental Rhythm. If you want to look him
Mhm.
up on YouTube at some point, so he's got a lot of exercises you can do that way. But him and Vince both do like some pretty interesting breathwork exercises and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's really for me, I found it really helped level me. And where I actually I just recently started doing jujitsu about a year ago. And where I realized breath work comes in is when you're doing jujitsu and martial arts or combat sports,
Yeah.
you need to really focus on controlling your breath. Because if you don't, it becomes detrimental to your performance
And
in
like
the
run out
sport.
of steam.
Yeah, you run out of steam, gas yourself out, and the other guy's not even sweating,
Yeah.
and you're
I wonder if Mike Tyson was practicing that on his
yeah.
his recent fight. Yeah, it's definitely really interesting. It's not something that I thought about all that much. Like even when I've had a lot of stress, like where it'll affect me, I think is like with sleep. Like not necessarily even falling asleep. It's like staying asleep, like where I'm like sleep for 3 hours and then I'll be awake from 1 to 4. Like
Yeah.
this is terrible. Right? But I've been trying to, just because of all the stress, like and everything that's happened, just trying to think about all the things that you're blessed for and you're grateful for in the morning, the things that you want to release, having intentions and stuff like that, and just reframing your perspective because it can be easy to be like, oh my God, sky is falling.
Yeah.
Especially the way that things are going, but it's super helpful.
And it reminds me of something that Tony Robbins said. We can't control what happens around us, but we could control the way we react to what happens around us.
Yeah.
And by understanding that, you ultimately handle the situation a bit better.
Yeah. Yeah, I like him. I saw him in person. There's this like real estate wealth expo, and he was a headliner. And I don't know if you've ever been to the convention center in Toronto, but it's massive. And it was like the entire convention center, like end to end, like I think it was probably 25,000 people. And then what was really cool is like I was there by myself, but I ran into someone that I knew. And he's like, "Oh,
Mhm.
come up and sit with us." And they just happened to be in the front row of that section, like at the midpoint. And literally, Tony Robbins ended up coming, like he moves around a lot, right? So he came down the section, and I'm not kidding. It was like he was the distance from me to like my computer, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
and I just felt
Yeah.
like he was like spitting on me, and but he was there for a while. So my friend's trying to be like, take this picture because he was
Yeah.
literally like towering over me, right? But yeah, I found it interesting. I'm not usually the person to want to like, they're like jumping around, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
I'm just not
he
like,
does that a lot.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not as comfortable with that. And everyone's like, woo, woo, woo. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, you try, but I'm like, oh, this is so uncomfortable.
But there's a reason why he does that.
Well, I know,
It's
because it's like getting in your peak state, right? Like it's
yeah,
getting that,
getting the energy going,
yeah,
getting it
yeah,
flowing, right? And
yeah,
this is, for example, like in real estate, they say when you're on a call and you're making, a business call or a negotiations call or something like that, trying to work out a deal,
yeah,
stand up
yeah,
because the energy flows directly from your feet through your body,
yeah,
and it flows a lot better if you're standing. Then, and same way when they say, like, for example, if you're on a call, try talking with a smile versus talking with a mutual expression.
yeah.
And the minute you start smiling as you're talking, the message just comes out a
A
lot
different way.
clearer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that because obviously you don't have the body language when you're just talking. There's a one guy that spoke at our synergy event, I think in Victoria, his name's Marcus Collis, Collius. And a really powerful story, but that's what he did. He's very big on like priming. That's what he called it. So he had certain things where I wouldn't even say like certain stretches and certain movements and things like that. And he even said how he'll do it with his kids. Like I think his daughters are, I don't know, like 6 and 10 or whatever it is, and he'll literally prime them, like so make them do all these kind of physical things going into school for certain things or into different sporting events because he knows it's going to set them up for more success and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I thought that was funny. I was like, my daughter's primed all the time. Like, I don't feel like I have to do that with her. But sometimes it's like they need that jazz up, and other times they just need that calm because they need to kind of get out of the funk, right? So, yeah,
Yeah.
funny.
Sorry, I just had my dog barking in the background because someone rang the doorbell. So
Oh,
if
that's
we
okay. I didn't hear it actually. So,
you hear that, sorry about
yeah.
that.
No, it's all good. We'll like rumbling and dogs and it's real life. All right, so I've got two questions to go.
Okay.
So in terms of the biggest changes that you've seen in yourself personally, how would you say that you've changed from the person you were before you were an entrepreneur to who you are now that you've got, different businesses on the go?
One of the biggest personal changes I've seen in my life, as a professional over the years, is the way I approach things. I used to always tend to lead towards more of a black or white style of thinking. And through business, I understood that sometimes things are not always black or white, they're also gray. And that's allowed me to really change the way I approach a situation and the way I thought of a situation. And by being able to change my thought process towards a situation, it allowed me to provide clearer solutions to whatever I was faced with, be it either a personal or a business scenario.
You think for adding context to the beginning, just to make it interesting, could you say something like, um, you have to be prepared to say goodbye to the person you used to be, and success is going to require like a better version of yourself or something like that. But like, however, we can again just make it intriguing for people to be like, um, you're going to have like, you know what I'm saying, right? Like how success requires you to be a better version of yourself, right? So you kind of have to say goodbye to the person you used to be. I'm just trying to think of like the best
I think
way to
yeah.
add.
In order to achieve the success that you want, you're going to have to say goodbye to the person you used to be and become the person who you're meant to be. Something like that, maybe?
Yeah, yeah. So I can edit
Okay.
that in and then I can just reverse kind of like what you said.
Yeah.
Um, so now if you could go back to the beginning, what's something that you wish you knew then that you know now?
Something that I wish I knew at the beginning versus now is that I would definitely have gotten a mentor from the beginning and realize that mentorship and coaching is something that could definitely help you take accountability in your personal life and your business. It's something that if I'm thinking back on myself, had I done it from the beginning, it might have saved me years of making costly and timely mistakes.
For an entry, do you think it would make sense to say something like, if I could go back in time, this is one thing that I would do different, and then add to that, or I can edit like some of the stuff you've said.
Yeah, no, I could do that. Yeah. I'm just thinking how do I want to word it?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I could go back in time, one thing that I would do different is believe in mentoring or coaching from the beginning. I was always stubborn when it came to that, and I always tried to figure things out on my own as I went on about it. But if I was able to go back knowing what I know now, I would understand that coaching is a very important part to your success. We don't know it all, and that's okay. But that's why there's people out there that could help guide us and coach us through business or personal life. And it's one thing that I believe would have saved me years in my professional career if I just understood that from the beginning.